my friends in the film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching, thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. And who is that down there? That's not Jeremy down there. That's not Tex down there. Could that possibly be after so many weeks of just floating out there in the wind? Could that possibly be the Dowager conversating Cora?
I'm alive. I'm alive. I have not shriveled up in the Vegas desert. I am alive.
She is still here, busy between two states, dealing with dogs that apparently like to beat each other up a lot, and going through a bunch of all the whole doggy parenting thing, which is not always easy. I mean, at least kids you can leave them on the doorstep of the fire station. With dogs, you got to give them special care, right? But very glad to have her. Jeremy, not here tonight. He's doing some stuff. Tex, of course, got caught up in work. So it is just me and Lady Cora tonight. But that's all right, because we're going to have a lot of fun anyway talking about this. Catch up real quick. Without going into too much detail, what have you had going on lately?
Well, getting settled in the moving. I tried to go to South Dakota to get a load of stuff. It didn't work out because the icy roads in Wyoming and Utah, that was fun. So turned around. And then had a load of stuff delivered and had to put it all away. And then my dogs decided that they don't like each other on a permanent basis. So my house is now segregated like prison, like zones. And they live separately in the same house. So that's been a huge adjustment. I'm doing well. I'm loving the weather getting better. And I literally, without talking to any of you guys or checking, the back channel we communicate on, I saw the thing about the show tonight, and I was like, I got time to watch this movie. I'll just pop in tonight. And it turns out it's a good thing I did.
Yeah, good thing, because I didn't realize till as I was sitting down to get this thing going that Jeremy and Tex are both going to need tonight off, but that's all right. Anytime I can sit and talk movies with Lady Cora is a good night.
Aw, you're sweet.
And of course, we're here to talk about the movie Copycat. It's the 1995 American psychological thriller film directed by Jon Amiel, and starring Sigourney Weaver, Holly Hunter, and Dermot Mulroney. The film follows a criminal psychologist and a homicide detective who must work together to find a serial killer who is committing copycat crimes modeled after notorious murders. The film was theatrically released by Warner Brothers on October 27th of 1995 and was a moderate box office success, receiving positive reviews for the performances of its leads, writing, and direction. It proved very successful in the video rental market as well, becoming one of the top 10 rented videos in the United States for 1996. That's how old this movie is. They were still renting videos back then. The film was a moderate success, making almost $80 million against a budget of about $27 million. The film received positive reviews from critics and holds an approval rating of 75% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 57 reviews, with an average rating of 6.5 out of 10. The consensus review reads, quote, Copycat's outstanding cast helps this often unpleasant thriller transcend the less palatable elements of its standard issue story. That's not entirely out of left field. That's a fair enough assessment of the movie. But I don't know. Lady Cora, give me your quick thoughts on Copycat.
First of all, I never heard of it. And I liked it. I love true crime. I was a little surprised. Sigourney Weaver's all right. And I just literally last night finished watching for the first time to me the series that Holly Hunter was the lead actress in, Saving Grace. And so then I see her and I'm like, no shit. And in that show, she's a cop, by the way. And then also Harry Connick Jr., who is one of the most handsome men in the world. And I don't know who the fuck made him look so ugly for this movie. But let me tell you, they're very skilled at making people look ugly. Because this man in a tuxedo on stage playing piano, seen him 4 times, is fucking gorgeous. So kudos to, they got an amazing cast. The plot was really good and engaging. I didn't get distracted. Didn't want to miss it. The timing, it was well written. Even the background, the music playing in the background was well placed. Fantastic movie. I wish I knew about this before. I was a sophomore in high school when this came out, so I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah, I think, a junior in high school when this came out. I remember watching it when it came out, but not really getting into it too much till well after high school. When I was just going on movie binges. But it's a good movie. It's a solid movie, kind of lost in the mire of a lot of I don't want to call them procedurals, but there was just a lot of thrillers that came out in the 90s. And they all it all just became kind of the soup of a lot of different movies. And some were good, some were bad. The problem is the good ones kind of got lost in the fray. I mean, because you had the ones from the 90s, like Silence of the Lambs, things like that. And those were obviously at the very top. And then you had some of like the mid-range ones that were still pretty good. This was one of them. But again, it just got kind of run over by all of the action, the style over substance stuff that came out in the 90s. And some of the other bigger thrillers like Silence of the Lambs, they got kind of run over by those movies. But I mean, but I was watching and I was like, with the exception of a few little visual things, it holds up pretty well. And of course, the 1995 MS-DOS way of doing was hilarious. I laughed
so hard when I saw her computer screens and all the menus.
There was a couple of times I kind of looked at that and giggled. I was like, good God, I can get such better graphics on my iPhone right now. But
it took me back too.
Yeah, it took me way back. I mean, look, let's talk first about the works of Jon Amiel, the director of this film. And I'm kind of disappointed. Okay. I'm kind of bummed now that Tex isn't here because he's got, and Jeremy for that matter, because he's a big fan of some of his stuff too. He may not know it, but I mean, this guy's done a lot of work that a lot of people have heard of.
I've never heard of him, to be honest.
Yeah, but nobody's ever really heard of him. He did that show Hemlock Grove, which I heard was like a spiritual thriller kind of thing, which I've heard is really good. I never watched. He did Carnival Row, which was with Orlando Bloom. That is kind of in the same vein. It was like this thriller, dark, mystical thing. He did several episodes of The Walking Dead, which I know Jeremy's a big fan of. He also did that show Once Upon a Time, which was this several episodes.
That was okay. I see he did Entrapment and The Core. I saw those movies.
Yeah, he also did Summersby with Jodie Foster back in '93, and of course Entrapment with Sean Connery, and then The Core, which is one of my favorite disaster movies.
It's a good one.
Even though they destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge, which I took kind of personally in that movie, but being a native of the Bay Area.
What is it with that bridge in movies? Remember the Star Trek movie with the whales? It was in that one too.
They didn't crash into the bridge; they went under it. They didn't hurt the bridge. That was okay. Don't hurt the bridge. But when the sunbeams melt the bridge, I was just like, wait a minute. You can blow up New York and LA. Nobody cares about those towns. But no, leave the Golden Gate Bridge alone. There's something special about that town. But I don't know. I mean, going over some of those things that we just mentioned. I mean, is it kind of a shock if this guy hasn't become a bigger name? Because it's not like he did a few things and fell off. He's had a pretty steady career and he's made a couple of decent things, but he's not a widely known name. Why do you think that is?
Maybe he's just one of those directors that kind of just did well enough, but never stood out or didn't have the right connections in Hollywood to get the gigs that are Oscar worthy and notable. I mean, it could be about who he knows. I mean, I don't know how Hollywood works, but it seems like it's more about who you know rather than how well you do your job sometimes.
Well, I mean, he's worked a lot with Frank Darabont, who did a lot with The Walking Dead. Obviously, was the director of Shawshank Redemption and several other things. He's actually Frank Darabont is actually directing 2 episodes of this final season of Stranger Things.
Oh,
so I mean, and Darabont's a big name a lot of people know. But part of me just wonders, like, maybe this guy's just an artist for the sake of the art, which I can't poo-poo that. That's kind of the purest form of artist, is people who just do it because they enjoy putting
and not for the money.
Canvas. Yeah. I'm sure he's made a few bucks. It's not like everything he's made has been terrible. I mean, I was looking down his list of his filmography and his TV stuff last night. There was plenty of stuff on there that people would know. I mean, a little bit of comedy, a lot of like the dark stuff, kind of like this, the thriller, things like that, that deals with the mystical, some of that stuff. But I mean, look, the guy's been he's been steady directing movies and TV shows for 25, 30 years. I mean, I don't suppose you get a career where you last that long, especially in Hollywood, if you're not putting out some pretty good product. And this is a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good effort. That's why part of me said, when I read that consensus review, the less than palatable elements of a standard issue story, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what all movies are. they're all kind of standard issue. It's just, I mean, I've said it 100 times. How many boy meets girl movies are out there? Isn't
there something to be said for whether it's literary or otherwise? If you break it down into like synopsises, there's only like 7 or 8 unique stories, and everything is just a something broken off of one of those. So I get it. Yeah.
I mean, West Side Story is essentially Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
It's just set at a different time. There's stuff like that. It's there are basic storylines that every movie is kind of built around. Every story is built around. It's really all in the presentation. But I think he's been a pretty good director. I mean, like I said, The Core is a great movie. Entrapment's a good movie. Of course, almost anything with Sean Connery, it's going to be pretty good. He brings gravitas to everything. Once Upon a Time, I didn't watch.
I watched the first season or two, and let me tell you, for an ABC show, it was one of the better ones, but still it ends up being one of those shows that they kind of milk it for more episodes and the plot has room for, if you know what I mean. Like, there's a lot of filler shit in it. So,
I watched little bits of it, and I thought it was an interesting concept to take these these stories and turn them into something different.
Right.
Not to be so light and airy about them, but to give them kind of a dark turn.
Give the characters like a human personality that you can relate to.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like I said, I watched bits and pieces of it. It didn't really get me, but I was like, I get it. The Walking Dead obviously has been a phenomenon for years. Carnival Row, I've heard a lot of people say good things about, as well as Hemlock Grove. I just haven't had a chance to sit and watch it.
Never
Hemlock
heard of that
Grove looked interesting to me, but I never had a chance to sit and watch it. But but whatever. I mean, go check out his films. But I mean, now let's talk about the cast. I mean, like Sigourney Weaver, Holly Hunter, Dermot Mulroney. Dermot Mulroney was fairly young in this movie. This was mid-90s. Holly Hunter had been around for a while. She was already a bona fide star. Sigourney Weaver obviously was already huge. Aliens, Ghostbusters, all this stuff was already behind her. But what do you think of the cast, and who stood out to you the most?
I had, I'd seen all these people later obviously, but going back and seeing them in their younger selves, the Dermot Mulroney guy, he's always been a very good actor. I didn't realize that he was so good out the gate because he's really, really young here. I'm always impressed with Sigourney Weaver. I will say a couple of the characters that stood out, that Nico guy, he has very few scenes, but he creeped me the fuck out. Like, he was on point with that character and character development, or I don't know, but I would say in general, some of the younger ones that, ended up being, I mean, Holly Hunter gave a pretty good performance, but Sigourney was really great at visually expressing herself in this, the terror in her face when she's, outside her doorway trying to escape, or, it's not just with the words. So she was very good with the physical acting in this. It was, I'd seen her and stuff, but never in this way. So I would say it was a great cast overall. Nobody disappointed. There was nobody that goes, oh, they don't fit that role. They really didn't get it. This is not believable. The only one that was close to that was, I forget who he is, but the cops, Holly Hunter's her captain, the guy who smoked, had the terrible haircut. Yeah. He seemed a little bit cookie cutter, stupid. Well, then I don't want you talking to her. I don't want you talking to her. I don't want that. And so anyways, except for that guy who had very limited roles, everybody else was really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's not. I agree. There's nobody in this cast that does a bad thing. I mean, for Dermot Mulroney, I mean, again, young, but still a good screen presence. He was young. Nowadays, I mean, now we know him to be Dermot Mulroney. Holly Hunter, like I said, at this point was already awesome. And here's where I'm gonna do a little bit of Holly Hunter appreciation. She is so beautiful in this movie. I mean, it's not just that she's got this whole tough San Francisco cop thing going on, but it's like you add the Southern accent into that. It brings this it brings this hint of aw shucks innocence to her character, but that she will still shoot some of the brachial nerve and get you to drop the gun and all shit like that. I mean,
and she dresses nice. Her hair is feminine. She's wearing jewelry, but yet she's still got a bulletproof vest on, and she can shoot you. It's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, but but movies like this are made on their killers, and good God, was Harry Connick good? I mean, it's like this scene right here. I was like, this scene makes the movie. This happens early in the movie, and it gives you that sense of dread. When he licks up the knife with his tongue, I was like, that is badass. And you've gone on your Harry Connick Jr.
I've been in a room with this man 4 times. I've been 10 feet from him, and for him to look like this,
I've seen him in movies. I listen to his music, and I'm like, good God, this guy's just entertaining as shit. But look, because this movie had to have, it's a thriller. It has to have a killer that delivers that chill. Harry Connick Jr. is that guy. I mean, this movie does not work if not for him. Here's the problem. He's not the main bad guy. This schmuck is. And I was kind of, as I watched this movie, I was sitting there watching it last night and I was trying to I was overthinking, the movie like I usually do. And I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I get it that this guy, I almost think it was kind of a joke that he fits the serial killer thing that she was describing earlier in the movie. White male, very average looking, physically fit, between the ages
charming,
20 and 35, charming, whatever. And this guy's, got that innocent smile. He's got the big glasses. He looks like a very average guy. And of course, that's what serial killers look like, apparently. But I didn't see, it's like there was almost no point in him even being in the movie. And he's supposed to be the killer.
He's more the puppet. Especially with the last scene, because he was the puppet. Because he's basically planning and setting up for the next puppet to step up.
I didn't think that his character was strong enough. Nothing against the actor. Because I've seen him in things before. He's been good. I forget his name off the top of my head. But
now I will say if the last scene hadn't happened, what you're saying would have made me think less of the movie. But because of the last scene, it makes me feel like that was part of the whole reason he was weak and failed and was not as good as he should have been at what he was trying to do.
Because I remember when I watched this movie the first time when it came out, I remember one of the things I was thinking I think I'm usually pretty good at catching foreshadowing. So when they first go to see Sigourney Weaver's character and she says he escaped again, didn't he? Talking about Harry Connick Jr.'s character. He's like, oh, no, he didn't escape. I'm like, well, he's going to at some point. That's the foreshadowing part. I think it would have been a better ending had he escaped towards the end of the movie and just surprised the fuck out of everybody and then rolled up there as the climactic shit was happening. And maybe he kills his puppet himself so that he can be the one that finishes off Sigourney Weaver's character.
Again,
and then that would be a big
you guys should, you and Jeremy should be writing movies. Just saying. But yeah.
I mean, maybe it wouldn't have worked. Maybe I would have shot this damn thing. Maybe I'd spent $20 million making it and it would have bombed. But I mean, I feel like that would have been better because as interesting as it was at the very end of the movie where he's writing another letter to another one of his minions, he's trying to get to go do whatever chaos he's wanting him to do. I feel like that would have been better. I feel like Harry Connick Jr. is the real bad guy in this, and not having him out there involved in all this shit directly, getting hands-on, blood on his hands, so to speak, is probably, that was kind of a mistake. Because like I said, I couldn't really get into this guy. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. He was he fits the mold of the serial killer, but at the same time, I just couldn't. And I'll talk with him a little bit more later about what his role in the film was supposed to be. But let's talk about the basic plot now. I mean, killers, stuff like that. She and this is a great scene too. The opening scene where she's giving her lecture,
the lecture hall,
through all that. The plot again, kind of a cookie cutter plot as far as thrillers are concerned for the '90s, but not bad in my opinion. What do you think of the plot? Did it work for you? Is there anything you'd change?
I think the only thing I would change is the reality that woman was so protected. They wouldn't have let anyone be in the bathroom with her, and she would have had a female officer with her. I think they should have had a female officer. Like, there's little things, but I think that they had to have her have this assault, obviously, as a precursor for the whole rest of the plot. But the concept of it is believable, but I just think some of the details were stupid. But and if I loved the moment when she sees him in the audience and then she flinches and then it's not him. There's a lot of little nuggets there, and how she interacts with her own face on the screen and how it makes her slightly uncomfortable. You can tell it's very well done, and it was believable. I've been at lecture halls and events like that and heard people speak that looked and felt exactly like that. So I think they opened well. And I think it was better than having them start with the current case and like doing a flashback, because you feel like it's going in chronological order. And for me, that's better in movies.
Yeah, I try not to cherry pick too many dumb things because this is 1995, this is 2024, so we're living in a much different world now than we were now 30 years ago. but but yeah, I agree. If she was already, protected up the wazoo with cops, there'd be more than 2 cops walking around with her. Especially afterwards when we get later on in the movie, and she is like, it's becoming obvious that there's this connection between her and this guy who's currently killing, how he's personally contacting her and going after her. There would have been 37 cops around her apartment the entire time. There wouldn't have been 1 cop sitting outside the door to get distracted by an
and they might have
made
her move, like said.
That it would not have been that easy. Yeah, I mean, she's because of her mental condition, the agoraphobia. Maybe they would have just like said, okay, you stay there. We're just going to load this place up with cops. We're going to basically build a precinct in your back bedroom. But still, I mean, there would have been 1 cop sitting out there. That to me was a little bit ridiculous.
And there would have been security on her best friend, who's coming and going, who's a known resident of the unit. It's like,
there was
that one was hard. Her best friend getting killed. That one was like.
That sucked, yeah, because he was a pretty likable character. I mean, for a guy who really doesn't really have a huge role, it's like his character was pretty likable. And that scene where she hyperventilates after she first sees the pictures and they first go to talk to her, that conversation between those two when she comes back around, when she finally wakes up, that to me was like, that was a solid relationship that she enjoys. It is not a complicated one for her. That should have been one that I thought they should have explored a little bit more. And that would have made because his death sucks. Obviously, it hits pretty hard. But I think it would have been a little bit harder if it happened a little bit later in the movie, and you could have explored them a little bit more, showed some more dialogue between these two. Yeah, showed some dialogue between these two. I think that would have been better. But I get that he had to represent the Jeffrey Dahmer style of murder.
Like if they had been with the killer at the same time, and she had to watch him die or something like that, that would have been very powerful. But yeah,
that would have been rough. I mean, him dying, I think, was good. Watching him die might have been a little bit much, but I mean, the fact that he died, that would have made the impact. I mean, obviously she's going to feel it one way or another, but that would have made us as viewers feel it a bit differently. It would have cut a bit deeper, I think. But I would have done that a bit differently. But for the most part, I can't really knock the plot. It was kind of a cookie cutter thriller from the 90s. There was a ton of them. But again, it's the presentation. I thought the presentation of this movie was really good. And of course, it's also set in San Francisco, which doesn't hurt. One of my favorite places in the world to be. I just seeing San Francisco always makes me smile. But yeah, I can't knock it. I mean, again, the ending. I
think they were setting up for a sequel.
I don't know if they were trying to set up for a sequel. I feel like they were giving you that last little bit of dread right before you walk out of the theater. So it's like you've gone through this whole thing. You killed the minion, the pawn, and all that, and it's obvious that he was writing letters to this guy, a la Hannibal Lecter writing letters to Buffalo Bill and things like that. But I feel like what they did was they tried to say, okay, we want you to still be a little bit scared as you leave the theater. We want that little piece of doubt in you that is going to eat at you a little bit for a couple of days after you didn't watch this movie. And I thought that was pretty cool, actually. I actually kind of like that ending. Generally, I don't like it when they leave movies open like that, because most of the times that's my first thought is they're fishing for a sequel. They're trying to convince the studio that, hey, we need to have a sequel now. There's got to be another killer that he promotes to go after this character. No, leave that little bit of dread and then send me home. Send me home to think about that. Let it linger a little bit. I think that was a smart thing to do. But I never saw any iota of a sequel from this. As cool as it could have been, I never thought. I didn't think that's what they were going for. But I mean, the plot was really good. But the question is where does this rank amongst other '90s thrillers? Like I said, I mean, there's a whole lot of.
This makes me think of The Net a little bit with
stuff like that.
Sandra Bullock.
The 90s was full of movies like this. This is one of the better ones to my mind. I mean, of all the thrillers that came out in the 90s, and even really going back to some in the late 80s and into the 2000s, I mean, there was about 15 years where these movies were tremendously popular. Where does this rank? Where does it stand out for some of the ones that you've seen over that time period?
I would say I liked it a lot more than I thought. I mean, I knew it was going to be good with the actors, but I would probably watch this again over a handful of ones that I grew up watching. This was to me as thrilling and maybe almost as interesting as the original Mission Impossible movie, which I watched as a teenager in 95, 96, whatever came out. and loved it. And this was pretty damn close to that in my interest level and intrigue. So
good God,
I'd see it
95.
again.
Tom Cruise has been making those movies for 30 years.
I won't watch them out of principle now because that Scientology's a cult, but you know, good for him.
Well, it's just the idea that Tom Cruise has been making that movie franchise for 30 years.
I know. I had a skip day with all my best friends freshman year of high school to go to the theater. Our parents knew what we were doing to see it opening day, and yeah, memories. Seeing movies from the '90s in the '90s, something funny. Jeremy will never experience.
If you think about it, Vin Diesel has been doing Fast and Furious movies for almost 30 years. He's been doing it.
Yeah, and he's going to do them for another 60. So
years. I mean, when did the first one come out? 2001, 2002, something like that.
I don't know. Makes me want a tuna sandwich. Just saying. But anyways,
tuna sandwiches aren't that good. but yeah, I mean, it's again. Amongst the night, again, you're measuring this movie against another thriller like Silence of the Lambs. It doesn't even.
Oh no,
Silence of the Lambs is better.
To me, that's because that's a book that's based on a book, a literary piece of gold. I mean, what source material was this? Was a basic screenplay that someone fixed up a bit because they had some pretty good casting. It's not going to hold up with some of that stuff, but.
And then you had techno thrillers like The Net you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
There was a bunch like that because as computers were becoming a big thing, and kind of gets displayed in this movie a little bit as well. As computers were becoming a big thing, that was kind of like, oh, we need to put computer stuff in all our stuff now because computers are becoming big. So everything's about computer thriller and techno thriller, and that's where the techno thriller came from, was the 90s. Yeah, like I said, it's probably a little bit above average for the thrillers that came out from the late 80s all the way up till about 2000, 2003, somewhere in that range. But it's one of the better ones. It's one of the ones that when you say 90s thriller, this is one of the movies that's going to come to my mind as one that I would sit and watch just for the sake of sitting and watching it. I mean, there's a lot of them out there that it's like, oh yeah, I saw. It's like, well, again, The Net. It was like I saw that movie, and it's like I've never sat around and be like, you know what, I really want to watch. I really want to watch The Net.
Yeah,
that's never really come to me. But it's like this movie, I'm flipping through, and I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty good movie. I'll sit and watch that.
I have rewatched the movie Primal Fear a few times. That was a really good one. This also has like a fugitive vibe to it a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's Sleeping with the Enemy kind of vibe too. I don't know. I liked it. I was surprised how much I liked it. I would watch it again. I can't say that about a lot of movies. So
well, I'll give you this bit of trivia right now because it plays into this part of the discussion. Years later, Sigourney Weaver would state that she was most proud of her work in this film. She worked hard to portray the mindset of an agoraphobic and has regretted that this movie was lost in the shuffle of thrillers at the time and is not better remembered. I 100% agree with that. This movie, while it is, like I said, bit cookie cutter, it is kind of just like a lot of other movies that came out. But the cast was great. Harry Connick Jr. takes this movie to the next level. Holly Hunter, fantastic. Will Patton, as his career was starting to get going, was one of the cops, her ex-boyfriend guy who's acting like an asshole for most of the movie. It's like the cast was really good.
Yeah,
and that chemistry. Sometimes you accidentally make a great movie. It's like nobody sets out to make a bad movie, but sometimes you actually make a movie really, really good. It's like because I would imagine when they were making The Wizard of Oz, that they weren't thinking to themselves, "We're making this movie that 100 years from now is going to be widely revered by all cinephiles." They're probably just like, "Yeah, we're making this movie." It's like you never know when you're making a movie if it's going to be like that. And so, but this movie, every now and again, like I said, you get the right cast, you get the right everything. The writing is great, the performances are great. Everything works out great. Editing is very, very important. A lot of people don't realize that.
And do you agree, as somebody who was alive at this time, it's very authentic what life was like when this movie was set. It doesn't seem hokey, fake. I mean, it's very relatable.
Oh yeah. And even knowing what San Francisco was like. I mean, like I said, I grew up in that area, just about an hour south of there. So just knowing what San Francisco was like at the time. It was because a lot of people think San Francisco movies, they think Dirty Harry, and it's not like back then anyway, there wasn't that kind of crime in California all the time. But this was it was pretty realistic in that there was a lot of I actually kind of liked the captain guy. He was kind of the prototypical guy. It was like, I mean, it was 1995. This guy's obviously been around a while. I mean, they even make references to him working the Zodiac case and stuff like that to kind of like draw off that a little bit. So that little member berry, be like, oh yeah, I totally remember that case and stuff like this. Before the Zodiac movie came out. Of course.
Oh, I thought of another '90s movie. This reminds me of Sneakers.
Yeah.
With it's all like computer stuff in it, and there's like intrigue and there's action. Like that's one of my favorites, and this is maybe as interesting as Sneakers. So, yeah.
Again, there's a lot of '90s movies that do this. This one just does it a little bit better. It's not the best thriller that came out of the '90s by far. Maybe not even in the top like 20%, but it's definitely one of the ones that's.
I never saw Hackers. Did you see that one? Is this like this or not?
We reviewed Hackers not too long ago.
Oh, okay.
You should see it though. It's actually a fun movie. It's not really like this.
Okay.
It's definitely I guess you can call it a techno thriller. It's more of it's a little more actiony. There's some comedic elements. I mean, I think it's probably called a techno thriller, but I don't think it was really a thriller like that. It's a fun movie. It's one of my favorite movies to watch. We actually just reviewed that a while back. So I mean, and that's on Tubi for you to watch, so you can check it out as well.
Cool.
But let's tap into some trivia now. And let's see, Sigourney Weaver, she actually prepared for her role by consulting with a forensic psychiatrist named Park Dietz. Park Dietz would actually give testimony in, I think, 2 or 3 serial killer cases, including Ted Bundy, who you see right there behind Sigourney Weaver.
Actually, that's not Ted Bundy. That is, fuck. The guy who killed all the guys, the gay men that he was having affairs with, put under his house. Why am I blanking?
Oh, yeah, John Wayne Gacy. Sorry, John Wayne Gacy.
Yes, John Wayne Gacy, yeah.
I got that. Yeah, I got that wrong. I'm sorry. They don't know these serial killers look alike. Well, they all look like white men to me. So.
Well, technically, he's very white with the white paint on his face in that photo. But yes.
But yeah, that's one of the things I like about when actors really get into it. They're like, I'm not just going to pretend to be this crazy psychologist person. I'm going to go actually talk to somebody who gets in the heads of serial killers, which cannot be the funnest place to be sometimes.
Yeah, I've watched some YouTube videos of people who work with convicted ones in prisons and mental health facilities, and the shit they say is just, yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I read one of the movies I want to do at some point is Zodiac with,
Oh, I would totally do that with you.
That's one of my favorite movies. And like I said, having grown up in the Bay Area, for better or worse, Zodiac's kind of a legend. I mean, we're kind of proud of the legend in a way. I know it sounds bad to say it like that, but it's ours. It belongs to us. And I read an interview with a lady who interviewed the guy who was the main suspect. I guess just a year or so before he died. And she said, I guess after he had died, she had said, I think she interviewed Gacy. She interviewed Charlie Manson. She's like, I've sat in the room like feet away from these people. I've never been freaked out by any of them. She said, this guy freaked me out. And he wasn't even convicted of anything.
Isn't it funny?
That guy was obviously off. I guess she had said that he during the interview, he was saying shit like, I can't believe they're ruining my life, covering his eyes, and he would look up to see if she was looking, and then he'd go back down and cover his eyes to act like he's crying again. She was like, she's like, that guy creeped me out. She's like, of all the guys I've known, convicted serial killers I've been in the same room with, she goes, that guy who hadn't been convicted of the thing freaked me out.
The thing that got me about him is that he died and all the phone calls stopped. Because I don't know if a lot of people know this, Zodiac killer cold called and prank called all the people who survived him for years, for the rest of his life. And as soon as he died, the phone call stopped.
I've read Graysmith's book, Zodiac Unmasked. That's a great book. That's a great book.
I haven't read it, but
it was what they basically made the movie out of. Was the Zodiac book that Robert Graysmith wrote. It was basically made off that book, and afterwards he came out with Zodiac Unmasked, which he put some things in there that he couldn't put in the original book because they weren't publicly known facts about the case yet, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I think when he first wrote the book, they didn't have Robert Lee, whatever the hell his name is, the suspect guy. They hadn't publicly released his name as a suspect, so they had to give him a pseudonym, a fake name in the book originally. But in Unmasked, I think that actually got released after he had died. So they were just like, fuck it, we're going to put his name out there. Yeah. But yeah, that's a great movie too that we need to go after. But
agreed.
And Harry Connick Jr. He also spent weeks watching documentaries on serial killers to prepare for his role.
Wow. And this was his first big movie, by the way. I looked up his IMDb when we were talking. And he did like a few things like a TV episode here or something like that. But this was his first like full role in a movie. So it's impressive because I've seen him in other acting gigs and he's always been good. But damn, he did very well early on. Like, impressive.
Well, it was the year after this. He was in Independence Day with Will Smith.
Oh,
a movie that, God, he should have lived longer in that movie. I've always been really disappointed that he didn't live longer in that movie. But whatever. His death was emotional, and he was a character that I liked.
But we know Harry Connick's still alive, so it's not.
Harry Connick is still out there doing Harry Connick things. That's all the world needs. But
did you know he's one of the few celebrities that has who stayed with the woman he married early on and had children and literally encapsulated his family and actually had a private life and protected them from the fame and the crap. Mad respect for him. So
I believe it. I think who was it? One of the guys played Bond. I think it was Pierce Bronson. He's been married to the same lady since I think the 70s or something like that.
Oh wow.
As I recall, not 100% sure.
I only know too much because he talks about him at the concerts. He talks about his wife Jill and the kids and stuff. And
yeah, there was an article that came out several years ago. I think it was in People magazine. And they were just like the longest married Hollywood couples or something like that.
Wow.
Some of these people have been married for like 30, 40 years. You know what though? One of the things they all had in common, a little off topic, my own little squirrel moment here. One of the things they all have in common is that the wife or one of the spouses, either the wife or the husband, is not really part of Hollywood.
Oh, agreed.
Part of the scene.
Do you know what I found out recently too? Because now that Bruce Willis is kind of, not really there. Some Demi Moore came out, I guess, and people were talking. I guess nobody really was aware of it. The reason they got divorced is because when they got together and got married and she was pregnant, he demanded that she stopped acting and just become a housewife. She's like, no, I want to work. And that's why they got divorced. He wanted that quiet life wife. So...
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to give up my career either if I was her. I mean, she was doing pretty well.
Agreed.
I mean, look, if you're doing it well, there's something creative about being in Hollywood, and I appreciate that people like being creative, and I wouldn't want to shit on anybody's creativity.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't have done that. But anyway, I don't know. That's on them, I guess. But, Harry Connick Jr. was actually asked by director Jon Amiel to come up with a slang term for ladies' panties, which he ended up coming up as squirrel covers. That was an expression that he had heard from his brother-in-law. And he ended up using
He grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, for some background. So
squirrel. I even giggled at it when I watched it last night. He's like, send me a squirrel covers. And I was like, good God, you Algonquin son of a bitch, you.
Yeah, that was an awkward moment to watch as a woman. Like, oh my God. Whatever.
Sigourney Weaver is almost a foot taller than Holly Hunter. Thus, for many of the scenes in the film, Weaver would be sitting down to make their heights appear more equal.
Oh, kind of like the tricks they did with when they were filming Lord of the Rings to make the hobbits look like hobbits.
Well, I mean, stuff like that has been done in Hollywood a lot. I mean,
yeah,
make people look taller. You shoot from a lower angle, stuff like that. Downlighting to accentuate someone's abs and stuff like that. I mean, they're camera tricks that have been around for a long time.
Well, they did not try to hide how short she was in the series Saving Grace I just finished watching. She's always the little shorty in the room with every other actor on that cast. But yeah.
I've already made the comparison to Silence of the Lambs for this movie, but I thought this one was interesting. William McNamara, who you see on the screen right there, he actually spoke to Happy Horror Time podcast several years after this movie came out and told them that his character was entirely rewritten and reshot after failed screen tests deemed him to be the worst part of the movie, calling his character too cerebral. The rewrites was done by Frank Darabont, and McNamara was coached by, of all people, Anthony Hopkins for the reshoots.
How curious. Can you imagine how offensive that would be? You really suck. We have to refilm everything.
Well, I don't.
That
think
would hurt the
sucked.
ego.
If he sucked, they'd have recast him. They'd have been like, no, you're not working out. We're going to cast somebody else.
Okay.
I think the problem is the character. Something that, as I've already said, I don't think they really fixed, because I think he's the weakest character in this entire film. There actually was, I don't think I have it in here, there actually was a entire flashback backstory that was supposed to explain why he became a serial killer that they cut out of the movie.
Oh.
And the kid that ended up played the younger version of him is still in the credits, although those scenes all got cut. So, but I mean, that to me is like, maybe you should have known ahead of time that this was not going to work out well. I mean, that
Like,
maybe
pick
his
a killer.
Yeah.
Pick a killer and focus on that one. In this case, the Harry Connick Jr. one.
I feel like it would have been better if they would have accentuated the mystery of him by not having him on screen so damn much.
Or at all, until the very end, like when he grabbed Sigourney Weaver's character.
Because it's like, because from the jump in this movie, they're putting him on camera, and I'm like, you're telling me who the killer is. Part of the fun of a mystery thriller is that I don't know who's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put him on screen every time and you focus on him and you make it, because like he's in the crowd when she's giving her lecture. If you just left it at that and then not shown him for the rest of the movie until the very end, that would have been like, oh shit, that's the guy from the very beginning of the movie. But then he also shows up in at the police station when Will Patton's character is kicking out some guy who's claiming to be the killer. And he even looks at him and says, hi. Will Patton's like, hey, how you doing? It's like, yeah, that's kind of a funny thing. It's like, the killer's right there, bro. We know what you don't know. But at the same time, I'm like, it would have been better if you'd have accentuated the mystery of it all. Like,
and if they wanted to show the scene,
and then don't show him again until you get to the bathroom at the end of the scene, the climax.
Right. Or when he grabs her and she doesn't know who he is, and then she realizes he's the killer after we. And the thing is, if they wanted to show those scenes of him watching the girls on the computer screen, show the back of his head with the computer in the forefront view. You know,
or even just that view of the glasses. This view right here, which I thought was a pretty good shot.
Yes,
it's like even that would have been something. It's like, okay, I know he wears glasses, and with that, if all you would have shown was like him in the opening scene at when she was giving her talk, like that might not have been a big enough clue. But you'd have looked at it and said, oh, hey, wait a minute, there's his eye, there's the killer. Maybe that guy would have been so inconsequential I wouldn't have remembered that guy with the glasses that they showed at her lecture earlier.
And let's be honest, Harry Connick Jr.'s character would not have given this guy's name up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always thought it was funny that he gave him up so quickly. Because I'm like, come on, at least Anthony Hopkins kind of played with his food a little bit. He kind of played with Clarice. It was that back and forth, that game between the two of them was part of the fun.
Yeah,
part of the mystery. It's like,
and they teased us that we were going to get it when he said, "I'm not going to talk till she comes over."
Does he?
And then you think it's going to happen, and then it's nothing.
Does he want to kill Clarice, or does he want to marry her? You never really know.
Like, he was a little too excited to get her panties. He was a little too excited for that.
But yeah, things like that. I was like, yeah, whatever. But the climactic bathroom scene that happens at the end of the film took 8 days to film.
That's it?
Well, you're talking about what is essentially 5 to 8 minutes of screen time, taking 8 days to film.
I don't know. It seems like something as elaborate would take a couple weeks to me, with having somebody rigged to look like they're about to get strangled. I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts with that scene.
Well, there's a lot of moving parts in every scene. We've ever seen the behind the scenes pictures and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts anyway, but
yeah.
I mean, 8 days to film. I mean, keep this in perspective. I mean, a lot of people think that like I said, a bunch of people get together, they spend a couple hours making a movie, and then we get something like Avengers or something on screen. No, it takes, I mean, from conception to opening day, it can take 2-3 years to get a movie done, because there's so many things that have to happen. And that's so much that has to happen before you even actually yell action for the first time. So it takes a lot, but 8 days to film what is essentially 5 minutes of movie. That's kind of wild. And this was not by any means a big budget production either. It wasn't like, like an Avengers where they're shooting for 6 months. I mean, the entire shoot for this probably lasted about 6 or 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they used 8 days of that relative short filming schedule to film this one scene is pretty crazy.
Well, it seems like they were serious about doing it right. So.
Oh yeah, and like I said, you've got the talent there. You've got you've got Sigourney Weaver and all these other people. So yeah, you're just gonna let these people act. So maybe 8 days to get the perfect combination of dialogue delivery from these great actors. Yeah, I think it sounds about right. But I mean, think about it: 8 days to film 5 minutes of screen time. So weird. But let's see. I don't know if you noticed this or not. I didn't. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this scene a couple of times to figure it out. But when Sigourney Weaver is trying to lure the serial killer to come to her when she's doing her own little
copy and paste and the little wedding photo.
She actually whispers, "Kitty, kitty, kitty."
I heard it.
Those are the same words that she whispered in the classic sci-fi epic Alien when she was looking for her real cat, but instead the alien monster appeared. In fact, some of the piano chords in the final soundtrack of that scene resemble the same chords as in that scene in Alien.
Well, that's a fun little Easter egg. I've never seen Alien, so I don't know. But yeah, I heard her say it. She was baiting him, and I love that he said, you know, you wanted me here, here I am, you know. So, or accepted the invitation, I think is what he said. But yeah. And the thing that gets me is when he sent her the initial file that you know got vanished, you know, she didn't have a sending address. How the fuck did you send that to him? That's movie magic there.
Like I said, sometimes you just turn your brain off, let the movie happen. You know what's funny? It's like I was like hearing her and Dermot Mulroney's character talk about it in that scene. And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, these people 150 years ago still know more about computers than I do.
Oh, she's a backup disk. She's a backup disk. Yeah, backup everything. Like, and why would you open up? I mean, maybe viruses weren't a big thing then. I don't know, but you're just gonna open a file from an email address that you don't know. Like, I don't know. Different times.
Let's see, in the climactic bathroom reenactment scene, Sigourney Weaver actually spat in William McNamara's face without his prior knowledge from rehearsals. The reaction of anger and shock in his face is quite real due to his surprise. Props to him for going with it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's where usually where great scenes and performances come from. It's like the whole thing with Leonardo DiCaprio actually cutting his hand open in Django Unchained.
Mm-hmm.
On the box glass, and he just keeps going, and they made the blood part of the scene. It was hilarious.
Yes. I love those moments.
Performances come from. Let's see a couple of things, sure to cause a little bit of discussion. In 1995, due to a recent attack on two girls where one died, this film Copycat was banned in Abbotsford, British Columbia, and Canadian cinemas. Several other lower mainland theaters followed suit.
Mm-hmm.
The similarities between the film's Peter Foley and the real-life Abbotsford killer named Terry Driver were enough for local law enforcement to grow concerned about fueling Driver or panicking the public.
Did you hear about the movie The movie it was about a school death shooting, had Julia Stiles in it some years ago.
I've seen
the thing is, that movie was supposed to be released 1 or 2 years before, but they stopped it because there was a very similar case in real life, and they didn't want to upset the family. So
it's actually happened several times. I know there's a movie out there. It's actually a pretty fun movie to watch called The Phone Booth with Kiefer Sutherland and
I think I've heard of it.
Colin Farrell. That movie actually got put right before it was supposed to open, is when the whole Beltway sniper thing was going down, is when it started. And because that revolves around a sniper who is holding this guy hostage in a phone booth, they were like, maybe we shouldn't release this right now. It ended up getting sent. They just ended up skipping theaters and go ahead and releasing it on a video. That's actually a fairly good movie. But yeah, stuff like that. It's not uncommon. I know that movie. What was it?
It was shelved because of Columbine. In 99.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, there was also this comedy movie called The Watch that came out with like Ben Stiller and Vince fucking heck. Guy was dating.
I don't know.
For a while. That movie actually got, I think, delayed by like 6 months because of the whole the kid in Florida that got killed, the black kid by Zimmerman. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
I don't know.
But anyway, that whole thing went down because he was a neighborhood watch guy. They decided to delay that movie's release by 6 months because they didn't want to draw any criticism. They ended up changing the name of it as well, I think, from Neighborhood Watch to The Watch. I'm thinking to myself, it's a comedy movie about a bunch of dumbasses who think they're cops. Nobody dies in them. Because I watched the movie and I'm like, really? You delayed this movie for this? There is nothing in this movie that at all relates to Trayvon Martin. That's the kid, Trayvon Martin.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was right around the time that the whole Trayvon Martin thing happened, and I was just like, there's nothing in this movie that could even possibly that you could conflate to relate to that incident. Why? But I mean, people are so sensitive about bad press these days. Whatever.
I don't know. It's What can we say? We're weird as Americans. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, Texas actually. Click on this again. Click on this wrong stuff. Texas that Scream 3 was stopped and redone because of the Columbine shooting as well.
Oh, hi Tex. Yeah, I looked it up. The O movie was delayed 2 whole years. So, yeah.
Yeah, real life has affected a lot of movies. I know the very first Spider-Man trailer with Tobey Maguire. There's actually a scene in that trailer where in the very first trailer for the movie, the big first trailer that came out, where he catches this helicopter that's trying to get away from a robbery. He spins a web between the 2 World Trade Center towers and catches the helicopter.
Oh, no.
And that trailer came out before 9/11. And then after 9/11, they pulled that trailer and recut another one that didn't have the trade centers in it.
Yep.
But they also fixed the end of the movie where, like, at the very end of the movie where he's swinging around and he lands on that flagpole with the American flag waving in the air. They were trying to feed off that whole wave of Americana.
Oh, got it.
So they wanted to have the big American flag and the shot over New York at the very end, which is still a great shot one way or the other. But yeah, real life changes a lot of stuff. But let's see, another piece of trivia. There was actually a little bit of a lawsuit that came out because of this movie. See, in 2019, the New Yorker article wrote that A.J. Finn's best-selling debut novel, The Woman in the Window, which came out in 2018. I'm sorry, that was a movie that came out in 2018. I'm so sorry. Had the same setup without attribution to Copycat. When notified of this, the director, Jon Amiel, said, "Wow, it's probably not actionable, but certainly worth noting." And one would have hoped that the author might have noted it himself. They actually turned this movie into turned that book directly adapted into a movie in 21, starring Amy Adams. It's on Netflix right now. I actually read the synopsis of that book because I was curious. It basically the only thing that it's actually more like a rear window. The whole movie,
yeah.
Where the guy he thinks he sees the murder from his window.
I love the original with Jimmy Stewart, but I also like the remake with who plays Superman again? I'm blanking on his name. The one who died, Christopher Reeves.
Well,
both are good.
There was a movie called Disturbia that came out probably mid 2000s with who's the one kid? Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf's in it, and it's basically the same premise. He is injured and he's stuck in his house or grounded or something after he was, because at that point he's still kind of young, and he sees somebody getting murdered, but it's the same basic premise. But that's basically the only. It's actually closer to that than it is this, because the only real similarity is that the person who witnesses the crime from their window is agoraphobic, and they're in their house.
That's not anything like this.
And that's the only real connection. That's the only real connection to that book that is obvious. But I don't know.
Well, look at all the people in the music industry who sue each other over stealing my song because they have a similar harmony or a similar lyric. This guy is probably looking for a paycheck.
Yeah, I've often thought of that too. When it's like when comedians accuse each other of like stealing each other's jokes, I'm like, is it possible? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But is it possible that maybe 2 comedians look at this particular situation, like, like say the unrest going on some of the campuses right now? Like, isn't it possible that 2 comedians who are on opposite sides of the country are watching the same news report and they kind of get the same basic idea, the same?
Well, there's only so much source material.
Yeah.
Actual facts. Did you know Joan Rivers, to back herself up and to protect herself from such things, she had note cards, and imagine like a whole wall of those old library cards, when you try to fight those Dewey Decimal Card systems.
Yeah.
All her jokes were handwritten and dated and signed by her and cataloged in the system. So if somebody came out and said that she stole a joke, she could show them this. So yeah, that shit happens.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But one more piece, and I was saving this for Jeremy because I know how much he hates me when I give him these questions. But what was the body count? How many people do you think died in this movie?
Oh, I would say less than 15. I'll say 11. I don't think it's a high body count, but 9 to 11. I'll go with 11.
You're gonna go with 11. Okay, the official body count per IMDb is 10.
Oh, Okay.
I kind of wonder, because they only really got around to, what is it, 4 or 5 serial killers that he ends up completing the copycat. Well, no, maybe it is.
Well, they're supposedly going off of the list off of her speech, and she only listed those 6.
Okay, I'm thinking about it. If you count everybody who just dies on screen, not everybody was killed by the killer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you count Dermot Mulroney's character, he dies in the movie, so that could be counted in the body count.
The killer dies.
The killer dies. So yeah, I mean, if you factor in all those things, it probably pushes itself up to 10.
Yeah. But actual, meant to be by this question, I think, is probably, 5 or 6?
Well,
7?
I know they mentioned at one point that at some point that he was either wanting to or was getting ready to kill, 3 people in one day, like Dahmer or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, Ted Bundy, when he went to the dorm and killed the nurses.
Yeah.
And then she baited him to come after her instead. And then when she said the cop's coming, because that's perfect, because he wanted multiple female victims at one location to simulate the Ted Bundy stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess 10 sounds about right. But it could have been more. I mean, Tex likes murder. Put 5 more murders in there and Tex will be interesting.
Oh boy.
And some boobs. Don't forget the boobs.
Oh boy. Actually, I guess there kind of was. She was in the shower. You didn't see anything, but you did see her getting in the shower. So
true.
Yeah. I guess that would count.
And whatever. Boobs and murder. Boobs and murder, Tex. This movie had part of it for you anyway. But
let me tell you, in that Saving Grace series, Holly Hunter showed her bra 25 times, changing her clothes and stuff, and I'm like, I'm tired of seeing her bra, but great show. So
that's bra though.
I don't know. It seemed like they made a point to show her bra a lot.
That was my big problem with the Peacemaker TV series with John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the first 5 or 6 episodes, it was like, how many times can we show John Cena in his tiny whities? I'm like, I get it. John Cena's got a physique, whatever, and maybe once it's funny, but I'm like, every episode for the first 4 or 5 episodes, we have to have one elongated scene of him in his tiny whities, and I'm like, come on,
right?
Really? It's like
there's a YouTuber I watch because his content's interesting, but I've noticed he sneaks in a shot every episode of him putting pants on and off, or accidentally zooming in on his crotch when he's in, moving. I'm like, yeah, this guy wants people to see his dick through his pants. So I know what you mean. Yeah, it happens.
But that seems like a good place to start wrapping this thing up. Give me your final thoughts on Copycat from 1995.
Well, I didn't know it existed. It was a great surprise. What would we call it? Like a time capsule find. Fantastic. Liked, especially a tie-in with Holly Hunter for me finishing the series. I was shocked how good it was, and I liked it. I would watch it again. I'd be more apt to watch this over, say, some other 90s movies. So I really liked it. Fantastic casting, very well written, and it might be like a lot of other movies and kind of similar, but it definitely had its own vibe that can't just be, written off as like everything else. So good movie, worth watching, and I'm happy you decided to review it because I never would have seen it or known about it otherwise. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I thought it was a quality 90s movie. Yeah, Jeremy, I said it. The 90s put out some decent movies. Put out a couple bangers even. But I mean, I still think but yeah, it was kind of lost in the mire of a lot of different kinds of thrillers that were prevalent in the 90s. But I mean, look, like I said, you've got great performances. You've got the one thing that you have to do right in a movie like this is have a great killer. You had it with Robert Downey Jr. Jesus Christ, with Harry Connick Jr. It was a much better actor than I think he's ever gotten credit for. I mean, he's obviously great as a musician, But but he's actually a very good actor. He's been in a lot of things.
He was in a terrible movie with.
You muted. Unmute yourself. Finish your thought. And Cora has gone to the zoo. There she is. She's back.
So yeah, good show.
You mute. Say that again because you muted like right as you were going into all that.
I was saying that he was in a terrible movie with Renee Zellweger about some factory in the snow. And fantastic in it. She was shit, and the movie was shit. He's good in, like Sigourney Weaver, I would say. He's good in everything he does, even if the rest of it's total shit. So I like that he was in a movie that was good, and I'm very happy I saw it today. A nice little Easter egg of a good moment of my day. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, again, a good movie. Definitely one of the gems of the 90s thriller genre. There was plenty of them to come out. Again, great acting, great performances, pretty good writing. This movie works pretty well. I mean, I can't I can't really knock a lot of it except for the one minion killer. I wasn't. There was part of me that's just like, get this guy off screen and go back to Holly Hunter just being Holly Hunter. It's like I don't get it. It even had that one emotional kick when Dermot Mulroney's character gets shot, and I think it hurt even more because it was such an off-put situation of what was going on. It would have been different if he'd have gotten killed in a shootout with the main bad guy. But I mean, it was one of those. It's one of those things where it's like the death isn't tragic enough, and it happens because of something.
And they never addressed that Nico did it on purpose. He knew the guy was coming back in. And he made sure the kid was watching, leaving his gun in the drawer with the key in it, and walked away and watched it unfold. Like, and then he's like putting his hand on her. You know, I love you. I wish I could go. It's like he set this guy up to get murdered. Like,
I don't think he did it on purpose.
I did.
I think he was definitely inattentive. I thought that they could have made it a bit more subtle, but like, because you have to make it clear to the camera. You have to make it clear to the camera, so you have to focus on him leaving the key there. And
I know, but in a room full of people with somebody handcuffed at your desk, why the fuck would you take your service weapon? And it just doesn't add up, and it made me mad. And that guy creeped me out so bad. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely was kind of a bumblefuck.
I'll be honest. When the movie was first starting, and it became clear that was her ex, and he was creeping on her, I thought he might be part of the killing conspiracy thing.
I don't remember ever thinking that.
I had a moment.
I don't remember ever thinking that. I don't think, because again, he was. I don't think that was how I think he really wanted to get her back, and I think that he was smart enough to know that just like killing girls was not going to get her back. That eventually she would find out, and she wouldn't be like, "Oh, you do love me because you killed all these people." It's like, no, she'd have been like, "No, put your hands up. You're under fucking arrest." He had to have been known that she was not going to go for that. That eventually, for that to play out, she would have to find out it was him.
But the way she reacted to him is like, if she didn't want to be in a room with him, like he might try to rape her or something. He's that creepy to me.
I just think he was an asshole. I don't think he was creepy. I just think he was an asshole. And let's face it, some guys are just assholes.
Different experiences in life, different vibes. I get it. I
mean, look, I'm a guy. I'll tell you, some guys are just assholes. When you're a woman, you've probably seen it 200 times over the course of your life, at least.
Yeah, but I've also been a rude bitch of a woman sometimes, and have seen women be awful to men, so we're no better. Just saying.
Everybody's got their moments. That's the ultimate thing to take through all of this. But Copycat is available to watch on Tubi, free with ads. I think it's also available on Hulu for those of you like Cora who don't. I
watched it on Hulu myself. Yeah. Which, by the way, I'm very mad. I haven't watched Hulu in ages. When the fuck did they have ads? I've had Hulu for years. Why do I have ads now? I have to figure this out.
They, like most people, have put like an ad-supported tier on there. So it's like,
well, fuck you,
pay
Hulu.
for the full experience, or you can pay the cheaper one and have to deal with some ads. I've just always had the full experience on Hulu, so.
I didn't know it was a thing until today, so.
A lot of them are basically streaming services are becoming what TV used to be. It's the same thing with Spotify. It's like one of the great things about Spotify for the longest time was just like wall-to-wall music, no ads. And now it's like I can't go 3 songs out here in an ad. It's like I'm listening to fucking radio.
I do know Amazon Prime puts one ad at the beginning of movies now, and I'm okay with the one before. But cutting in and out just pisses the fuck out of me. But I'll deal with it.
Yeah. You know, it's like we're coming full circle. Like the only thing that streaming has over cable at this point is I can watch things kind of on demand.
Yeah.
So that's still worth the price of admission to me. But eventually, I'm just gonna be like, you know what, I may as well go back to cable because eventually cable's gonna get cheaper because nobody's using it anymore. So
I need to ask you: did you see the movie Beekeeper yet with Jason Statham?
I have not. I'm actually behind in a few movies.
If you do, can we review it? Because I want to watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
We might. I have to. There's a couple movies I need to go see. What else is coming out this weekend that I want to see?
I don't know. But I'm just saying it's now available for rent on Amazon for the $3.99. It's been the 45 days after it's been, out in the theaters.
Yeah.
So, and did you hear there's a new streaming service, MGM Plus? I looked it up. The only good movie they have is The Beekeeper, and it's $8 a month or $18.99 for 3 months. Not much of a difference. And they have total shit content. Like, it's hardly, I browsed all their content. I'm like, who's going to pay for this shit? So,
we had Apple Plus for a while, and we were just not using it. And there were some things on there I wanted to watch, but I was just like, I'm just not on there at all. So eventually we're just like, screw it. We're going to end we're just going to stop our subscription. And because there was stuff on there I was trying to get into. Like I wanted to watch For All Mankind about this alternate history thing about how the Russians beat us to the moon, but we were trying to beat them Mars. I wanted to watch that. It's like, I wanted to watch the movie Greyhound. There's a couple of Tom Hanks movies on there I wanted to watch. I wanted to watch Monarch because Tex had been talking about how good it was. But it's
I've heard that's good.
But it's like everything on there that I wanted to watch was still behind a paywall, and I'm like, why am I'm already paying for the service? Why would I pay another $10 to watch this movie? When half the shit I either had on DVD or it's available on other streaming services anyway that I already have. So I was like, screw it. We ended up just kind of letting it go because we just weren't using it. After 3 months of not using it at all, Jennifer and I looked at each other and like, are we still using this?
Yeah,
like, you still have a
same
subscription?
Here.
She goes, no. Like, we're just getting rid of this.
I had it for a while to watch Jon Stewart, and then I wasn't watching it, and so I turned it off. But I'm just shocked that there's even new streaming services coming out amidst all the streaming services, like kind of dwindling and having to add ads to keep revenue up. I'm like, do they not see what the market is looking like? I don't know.
At this point, you're better off just cutting a deal. What's the one studio? I want to say it was Sony. I think Sony's got Sony Core now, which is kind of its own streaming service.
Okay.
But Sony was just like, we're not coming out with Sony Plus or Sony whatever. We're just going to license everything to Hulu because why spend billions of dollars starting our streaming service when we're just going to be one in like 1,000 of them out there? So they just license their shit everywhere else. They got Sony Core now, which I think you can get like newer stuff a couple weeks before it hits like DVD or the other streamers. But I mean, other than that, they're just not messing with it, which is probably smart. It's probably better off.
I agree.
Then I think they signed a big licensing deal with Hulu, which is partially owned by Disney. And
that's why I have Hulu still, because I have this ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu bundle that came free with Verizon, and they keep renewing it every year. I don't know why. And it's all bundled together or something. And it's interesting how things are shaping up, but I'm still on the physical media vibe for me. So, yeah.
I still want some things in physical media. Yeah. But we'll go ahead and start to wrap things up there. Lady Cora, where can the folks at home find you? Here occasionally? Anywhere else on the internet?
Nowhere else. How often do you talk to me? Like my life is so in real life off the internet. It's almost like I have dial-up service or something, and I have no service left. So yeah, I'll be here more now that I've got my house divided like a prison, and I don't have to worry about my dogs murdering each other. So yeah. As long as it's not the horror movies that are going to give me nightmares, I'll be around. Yeah.
So she can watch movies while she's running the doggy Hunger Games over at her house. District 1 and District 2. That's how she's got her house put up right now for the dogs.
I got the vet bills to prove it. Yes. Yeah.
But you'll find me back here on Thursday going after another great 90s movie, one of the better ones throughout the decade, Jeremy. Again, I'm showing some love to your favorite decade. We'll be talking about The People versus Larry Flint, one of the great movies to come out of the 90s, one of Woody Harrelson's defining performances. Absolutely fantastic. I'm really looking forward to diving into that one.
Did you see him in Will and Grace? He was fantastic in Will and Grace.
He's kind of good in everything.
Yep.
he's kind of good. Did you see the thing with him on Twitter? I'll talk to you about that in a minute.
I know I've heard that he doesn't even have a cell phone. He doesn't use social media. Like, other people contact somebody else to get to him because he's so anti-digital age. So I don't know anything about this Twitter thing. But
apparently somebody tweeted him and he responded with a very funny thing. I'll explain it to you in a minute.
Oh, cool.
But come back Thursday to see us go over People versus Larry Flint. I'm not sure what we're doing next Tuesday. There is a movie coming out this weekend. I don't remember exactly what it is. I think it might be the new Planet of the Apes movie. I'm looking forward to diving into that one. Probably going to be doing that one on Tuesday. If not that one, probably Critters. I know Dr. Nick has been wanting to go into Critters. So we were talking about that one. It's a sci-fi horror comedy from the 80s about these little balls of hate that are
so like giant Furbies gone mad.
They befall this small town somewhere in Americana somewhere. I don't even remember the name of the town, and then they come across this kid, the small town sheriff, and it's a typical 80s goofy horror slasher comedy thing, but it's a fun movie.
If it's better than Spaceballs, I'll watch it. I hated Spaceballs.
There's not a whole lot better than Spaceballs. That movie's a classic.
Oh no. Oh boy. All right.
That was a classic. I already reviewed that one with Casey. We may have to go back and re-review that one so I can have somebody other than Casey.
Classically awful.
It's a classic. Mel Brooks is a saint. It's a saint.
I do not like anything Mel Brooks, but I do love his cameo in it. The one thing I liked about the movie is how well he sold tasting air out of a can. Like, he sold it, but I hate that movie. But whatever. I digress.
Calm the desert. Tell them to calm the desert. You hear me? Calm the desert. But come back and see us on Thursday. Going over to we'll see you guys then. Until next time. Adios. How do you not like Spaceballs? It was great.
No, Spaceballs is just not right. It's just there's a lot of little things wrong with it.
That's the whole idea. It's a spoof.
Yeah, I know it is, but it drives me nuts. I don't like it. John Candy with the dog tail should be criminal. It's not okay. I do think it's funny because Rick Moranis isn't around anymore. That he did hit with a giant helmet thing. But for the most part, I hated the movie.
He's a dog. He's his own best friend.